support comes from Dayton Performing Arts Alliance and its season opening celebration, Prince Orlovsky's Grand Masquerade, as Dayton Opera, Ballet, and Philharmonic unite to bring Act 2 of Johann Strauss II's Die Fledermaus to life. Performances September 16th and 17th. Information and tickets at DaytonPerformingArts.org/tickets.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. The White House spokesman describes the House impeachment inquiry into President Biden as an evidence-free goose chase. NPR's Susan Davis says the inquiry was announced yesterday by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who cites the results of investigations by House committees into the foreign business dealings of the president's son, Hunter Biden.
These investigations have been and will continue to be run by two Republicans, James Comer of Kentucky and Jim Jordan of Ohio. Republicans say that they hope the seriousness and the weight of an impeachment inquiry will prod the White House to be more forthcoming with things like document requests and requests for testimony, but all of that obviously remains to be seen.
Advisors to the Food and Drug Administration say the leading decongestant used by millions of people in the U.S. doesn't work. It's found in over-the-counter versions of Sudafed and Dayquil, among other cold medicines. Dr. Purvi Parikh is an allergist at NYU Langone Health.
This ingredient, phenylephrine, is in so many different cold medicines. That's why it is important to kind of educate yourself on what to look for and just avoid that ingredient.
Researchers have long questioned its effectiveness. The United Auto Workers Union and Detroit's big three automakers have less than 48 hours to reach agreement on new labor contracts before a potential strike. This is NPR News.
Good morning. It's 8:32, 56 degrees in Cincinnati. This is 91.7 WVXU. I'm Marianne Zalesnik. Northern Kentucky University is expected to name its new president during the Board of Regents meeting this morning. Interim President Benita Brown has held the reins of the university since the beginning of the year after former President Ashish Vaida left the position in December. During the search for a new leader, NKU leaders have also been working to reduce a multi-million-dollar deficit discovered last year. The university's newest president will be introduced during the board meeting starting at 9:30. Teachers' unions and other organizations representing state employees can continue collecting member dues through payroll deductions after a recent court ruling. The GOP-led legislature passed the ban on those payroll deductions earlier this year, saying they didn't want state resources to fund the political activity of unions. But Jefferson County Teachers Association President Brett McKim says the dues are employees' money, not the state's.
Once they get their paycheck, it's their money as an employee, and they should have the right to choose what they allocate the money to through payroll deduction. They should choose that, not the government.
In his ruling, Franklin County Judge Thomas Wingate said lawmakers tried to enforce an unconstitutional distinction when they banned nearly all public employee associations from using payroll deductions, except those representing police and firefighters. Attorney General Daniel Cameron's appealed. Last weekend marked the start of the first full NFL season since Ohio legalized sports betting. Experts are worried as sports betting becomes more common, more people will struggle with problem gambling. Derek Longmire is the executive director of the Problem Gambling Network of Ohio. He says calls to the state's problem gambling helpline are up about 150% compared to last year, and he expects even more calls this fall.
Football is a big element of that, so we certainly expect more sports betting in the fall.
The problem gambling takes time to develop, so Longmire says his network is preparing now for even more demand in the coming years. Tyler Stevenson had an RBI single in the 10th inning in the Reds' 6-5 victory over the Tigers last night. The two teams face off again tonight. After the win, the Reds are one game out of the wild card race. Partly cloudy today, the high 74, comfortable tonight down to 51. It's 56 now in Cincinnati at 8:34.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Data IQ, a platform for everyday AI, dedicated to helping teams move beyond the lab to build generative AI applications at enterprise scale. DATAIKU.com. And from Procter & Gamble, maker of Metamucil, a fiber supplement containing psyllium, a plant-based fiber for trapping and removing waste in the digestive system, designed to be taken every day. More at Metamucil.com. This is NPR.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm A. Martinez in Culver City, California.
And I'm Layla Faldin in Washington, D.C. 5 former Memphis police officers have been indicted on federal charges related to the death of Tyree Nichols. 29-year-old Nichols died in January, days after being brutally beaten by the officers. Katie Reardon from member station WKNO is in Memphis and is following this story. Katie, thanks for being here. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So just to be clear, these are new charges against these 5 former officers.
Yes, that's right. Earlier this year, all 5 officers were dismissed from the police force and charged with second-degree murder in state court. They've all pleaded not guilty. But yesterday, the U.S. Department of Justice announced these separate federal civil rights violations from the night of Nichols' arrest. Among other things, the officers are accused of using excessive force. Prosecutors also say the officers did not take action to address Nichols' medical needs after beating him and taking him into custody. That's even as it was clear Nichols' condition was worsening. It's also alleged the officers attempted to cover up these crimes by giving misleading and false statements. Here's Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark with the DOJ's Civil Rights Division speaking at a press conference.
When some officers violate the Constitution, when they use excessive force, when they ignore serious injuries inflicted on people they arrest, their actions erode the public's trust.
I did reach out to some of the attorneys for these former officers. One said that the officer he represents maintains his innocence and that he will continue to defend himself against all allegations.
So these officers were already facing serious charges, second-degree murder in state court. What prompts these additional charges?
Federal prosecutors said they're prioritizing accountability and want to send a strong message that no one is above the law. This is not the only place that they're stepping in to make that point. During the press conference, Clark noted that since January 2021, the DOJ has charged more than 100 cases of rights violations by law enforcement across the country.
In that same period, we obtained more than 86 convictions. We will never stop working to fulfill our duty to protect Americans from unlawful acts of police violence.
There's also a broader federal effort to scrutinize all policing in Memphis. In July, the Department of Justice announced the opening of something called a pattern or practice investigation of the Memphis Police Department. That allows them to determine if there are systemic problems with things like excessive use of force.
And you also heard from the Nichols family and their attorney. What did they say?
That's right. The family is represented by civil rights lawyer Ben Crump. At their separate press conference yesterday, Crump stressed that the DOJ under the Biden administration is putting police departments and officers on notice that misconduct will not be tolerated. We also heard directly from Nichols' mother, Rovon Wells.
This is something that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life, that I will not have my son. But if my son had to leave this earth in this manner, I'm hoping it was for the greater good.
She's often talked about this greater good, referring to meaningful police reforms.
Katie Reardon from member station WKNO in Memphis. Thank you for your reporting, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
CEOs of the big 3 automakers have enjoyed big pay raises in recent years, so why not the workers? Well, that's the argument the United Auto Workers Union has put forward in asking for a 40% wage increase. Here's NPR's Andrew Shue.
In making his case, UAW President Shawn Fain offered a pointed comparison. GM CEO Mary Barra made almost $29 million in 2022. The starting wage at GM's EV battery plant, Ultium Cells, is $16.50 an hour.
That means a newly hired Ultium worker would have to work full-time for 16 years to earn what Mary Barra makes in a single week.
Stratospheric CEO pay has been a point of contention for years. Now, it's taking center stage in labor talks, including those ongoing in Detroit. Auto workers are fed up that the rich are only getting richer while they have seen their real wages decline. According to the Labor Department, auto workers on the production line have seen wages drop by more than 20% over the past 2 decades when adjusted for inflation.
It's a lot more to it
than the average person realizes.
Danya Ferdinandson builds transmissions for Chevy Silverados and other trucks at a GM plant in Ohio. This summer, she was earning $27 an hour, the same as what she was making when she was hired in 2016. While CEOs enjoy their luxury watches and second homes, she says, workers like her face tough choices.
We got to decide, are we going to pay our electric bill, or geez, are we going to go over here and get this medication? I mean, we have to make decisions because our pay isn't right.
That discontent has been brewing since the union made huge concessions after the 2008 financial crisis brought the auto industry to its knees. Workers still feel that deeply today. The car companies, meanwhile, have not only recovered, they've seen their profits soar to the tune of $21 billion in the first half of this year alone.
What it is that we want is not going to break the bank.
Decades of outrage over excessive CEO pay has led to some attempts at regulation. Since 2018, the Securities and Exchange Commission has required publicly traded companies to disclose how much their CEOs make compared to their employees. GM last year disclosed that Mary Barra's compensation was 362 times that of the median worker at GM. Ford paid its CEO, Jim Farley, 281 times the median worker. In companies in other industries, the gap is even greater.
Obviously, CEO should be the highest paid person in an enterprise.
Josh Bivens is chief economist at the left-leaning Economic Policy Institute.
But then the question is exactly just how much higher than everyone else.
In 1965, CEOs made just 20 times what the typical worker made. But in the 1990s, their salaries became more tied to the stock market. And the stock market's massive gains led to lavish paydays.
That's not a dynamic that pulls up the wages of rank-and-file workers, obviously.
Well, as the auto talks near the strike deadline, the two sides still appear far apart. As of Friday, the largest offer on the table was a raise of 14.5% over 4 years, which UAW President Shawn Fain called
deeply inadequate.
Now, the UAW has come down slightly on its wage demands, but expectations among its workers are high.
Blue-collar worker, the working class, has had it.
Danya Ferdinandson went through a GM strike in 2019, says it wasn't glamorous. But come Thursday at midnight, if there's no deal, she says, we're ready to walk out again. Andrea Hsu, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
Good morning. It's 8:43. This is 91.7 WVXU. Coming up on the Marketplace Morning Report, Americans spend a reported $8 billion a year on cold medicines. Now an FDA advisory panel has found the active ingredient in many of them simply doesn't work, so the regulator is likely to pull it from the market. Also, New York City's pension funds and the state of Oregon are suing the Fox Corporation. They say investors were hurt when Fox exposed itself to defamation cases by broadcasting falsehoods about the 2020 presidential election. Those stories starting in about 10 minutes on the Marketplace Morning Report on 91.7 WVXU. Checking on traffic this morning. Northbound 75 south of Dixie in the Dayton area. The two left lanes are blocked by a wreck. Traffic is stop and go from 675. Westbound 275 at Turkeyfoot, a wreck on the right shoulder. And the suspension bridge is still closed. As also parts of Mering Way for police activity.
WVXU goes wherever you do. Listen to 91.7 online at iHeartRadio.com and on your mobile device through the iHeartRadio app.
Support comes from the Give Them 10 movement and Scooter, the little cat, here to answer any question about cats by calling Scooter's Help Center at 1-833-GIVE-10. A cat specialist can give you advice on spaying and neutering, adoption, fostering, cat behaviors, and more. That's 1-833-GIVE-10. I'm Lucy Renee. On the next Cincinnati edition, millions of families are bracing for a child care cliff. Billions in federal funds for child care are set to expire. We'll talk with Congressman Greg Landsman about efforts to shore up more support. Then we'll hear about a unique performance at the CSO, inspired by a composer and his nonverbal son.
Today at noon on Cincinnati Edition on 91.7 WVXU.
9 morning weather, partly cloudy, the high today 74, partly cloudy, comfortable tonight, under 51, tomorrow's high 74, 56 now in Cincinnati.
TV can play a huge role in your day, whether you listen to the radio, watch TV, go to the movies, read newspapers and magazines, or check it all out on your phone. I'm John Keesman. Media is my passion, and local media is my beat. Who's coming and going, who's appearing next on the small or big screen, or taking part in the latest hot show. If you're curious about our area's broadcast scene, I'll provide you the latest news and help answer your questions about local media on my blog, Media Beat, at wvxu.org.
Good morning. It's 8:45, 57 degrees in Cincinnati. This is 91.7 WVXU. I'm Marianne Zalesnik. Our feature, Okay, I Want to Know, is a chance for you to get an odd little question answered or go deeper into a topic. This week, WVXU's Bill Reinhardt looks into the placement of historical Civil War markers in the area.
Andrew from Madisonville says he's noticed signs for the John Hunt Morgan Heritage Trail. He says they're relatively new, and he's wondering who thought it was a good idea to put up markers commemorating a Confederate general's attack on the Union. John Hunt Morgan led troops behind Union lines on horseback to disrupt communications and supply lines. In his book, Cincinnati in the Civil War, David Mowry wrote about the biggest raid, which started near Corydon, Indiana.
He entered Ohio at Harrison, Ohio on July 13th, 1863, and came around Hamilton County, essentially following the route of modern-day I-275, and then exiting through Columbia County near Miamiville. And from there, he continued east toward the southeast corner of Ohio.
Mowry says the goal of that raid was to draw Union forces away from a planned invasion of eastern Tennessee. He says Morgan was successful in
the disappearance of activist Bruno Pereira and journalist Dom Phillips while on a fact-finding trip in the Amazon. And in Colombia, land rights advocates Teofilo Acuña and Jorge Tafur both put out videos denouncing death threats they've received.
Quieren acabar con el líder, la lideresa.
Esa es la triste realidad.
Last year, all 4 were found dead. Their names are highlighted on the list of 177 environmentalists killed in 2020, according to Global Witness.
Not enough is being done to stop the killings.
The group's Laura Ferrone says impunity fuels the murder rate and emboldens perpetrators to continue killing.
No one is jailed, no one is tried, nothing happens. So it's clear that killing a defendant doesn't really entail so many risks for the murderers.
Ferrone says many are murdered when they stand off with large and small-scale industries invading their territories, mostly in mining and agriculture. She says the rush to extract critical metals needed for electric vehicles and other transitional energy sources has seen activists clash with illegal miners and land invaders. Many of these are run by organized crime syndicates. Indigenous leaders made up more than a third of those killed last year. Colombia topped the list with at least 60 activist deaths.
Es una cifra realmente vergonzosa para el país.
It's really a shameful statistic for the country, said Environmental Minister Susana Muhammad in a video message. The government of leftist President Gustavo Petro recently passed a law to step up measures to protect environmentalists, but it's been put on hold by Colombia's Constitutional Court. Carrie Khan, NPR News, Rio de Janeiro. Things Considered from NPR News.
Coming up on WVXU, journalist Michelle Norris is examining the significance of the family kitchen. Norris talks about her new podcast, Your Mama's Kitchen, coming up at 5:35 this afternoon during All Things Considered on 91.7 WVXU and 88.5 WMUB.
WVXU goes wherever you do. Listen to 91.7 online at iHeartRadio.com and on your mobile device through the iHeartRadio app.
So
Support comes from the Valley Temple, hosting an informal and musical Rosh Hashanah experience on Friday, September 15th at 6 at the 20th Century on Madison Road in Oakley. This hour-long gathering welcomes the Jewish New Year with a live band, contemporary readings, and a sense of community. No tickets required. More at 513-761-3555.
Support comes from the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine and UC Physicians, where scientists explore the body's fundamental neurobiological mechanisms to help find new disease treatments and improve the lives of people with cancer, neurological, and psychiatric disorders. Learn more at med.uc.edu/indispensable.
This traffic report is supported by Speedway. Northbound 71 at Smith Edwards, there's a wreck blocking the right lane. In Claremont County, there's a report of a wreck southbound State Route 222 after Elk Lick Road. And in Montgomery County, still cleaning up an earlier wreck at westbound Alex Bell Road and Mad River. From 9, first warning weather. Mostly clear with some patchy fog developing tonight, 51 for the low. Nice again tomorrow. Look for a high of 74. It's 77 degrees now. This is 91.7 WVXU and 88.5 WMUB.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Easy Cater, committed to helping companies find food for meetings and team lunches, with catering menus from restaurants nationwide, online ordering, and 24/7 live support. EasyCater.com. And from Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution to help businesses attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR.
Man, people texting and driving.
This is NPR.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Elsa Chang.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly. In Morocco, people are still just getting to some of the mountain villages devastated by last Friday's earthquake, an earthquake that has killed some 3,000 people. NPR's Lauren Frater joined a sister and brother as they returned to see if their ancestral home is still standing.
Brother and sister Bujamat and Aisha Winasser survived Friday's earthquake. They live in different cities where they felt only tremors, but they grew up in a mountain village near the epicenter that hadn't been back in 6 years. And now they're going home to see if anything is left. All of our memories, will they still be there, Aisha asks? Our elementary school, our late grandmother's house, her brother adds. They hitchhiked up into these mountains until the roads became unpassable, and now they're walking alongside donkeys ferrying water and blankets uphill. On the outskirts of their village called Tinert, a cousin comes out to greet them and reveals his own staggering loss. All of them? Aisha asks in disbelief. The cousin's wife and 2 daughters are all dead. A once idyllic hamlet nestled in apple and apricot groves is now just a giant pile of debris. More than 50 residents died underneath it in a village of just a few hundred. One resident is still missing though, a 9-year-old girl. Her father is digging through the rubble of their 2-story home with Mohammed Wahab, the Moroccan search and rescue volunteer. With your hands you're digging? Yeah, run.
Our hands. See, show your hands.
A human chain carries away debris delicately so as not to collapse any air pockets they hope might be underneath. Then sniffer dogs moving in. There's about 50 villagers lining this pile of rubble, and they're all just straining their ears for a dog's bark. The dogs stay silent. They'll only bark if they catch the scent of someone alive, not a body.
So, what happened?
It's difficult to say, but with this kind of construction, it's very, very difficult to...
Spanish rescuer Edgar Juan says that unlike concrete and rebar, which when they collapse can leave air pockets, the red clay these buildings are made of becomes dense and impenetrable. The girl, he says, has likely passed away, and relief operations across this quake zone are taking a turn.
Sometimes he has a dark face and
The father was digging himself.
yes, it's very difficult for him.
The man's wife was killed in the quake, too. Throughout this ordeal, children play tag in what's left of the town square, and Aisha Renasser, who returned here with her brother, sits back from them under a eucalyptus tree and watches the search for this little girl in horror. Everyone in this village is like family to me, and our family is now shattered, she says. It's a big wound that'll never heal. Aisha and her brother hitch a ride back down the mountain, and later I get a message from the Spanish rescuers. They found the body of a 9-year-old girl. Her name was Shaima. Lauren Freyer, NPR News, in the village of Tinert in Morocco's Atlas Mountains.
Okay, get this. The human body produces at least 1 liter of mucus every day. I know, gross, right? But keep in mind, this sticky, slippery muck is crucial. It's a protective barrier against germs. It also helps your eyelids glide smoothly. And it moisturizes your gut. In fact, the moisturizing properties of mucus may sound familiar to those of you who've ever smeared a face mask with snail mucus on your face. That's right, this stuff can make you pretty. Seriously, snail slime is huge in cosmetics, and maybe I will finally take that plunge after this interview, because scientists like Antonio Cerullo at the City University of New York have been studying the secrets of snails. He's the lead author of a new scientific paper on the topic, out recently in the journal Nature Communications. Welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's so great to have you. So, I understand that CUNY has the largest library of secreted animal mucus. I didn't even know you call these things libraries. What kind of animals are we talking about here?
Sure. Our curated mucus library contains samples from corals, frogs, jellyfish, velvet worms, marine worms, oysters, hippos, birds, and hagfish, just to name a few.
But I want to focus on the snail part of that range, because I understand that for your study, you use snails that are the same snails used for escargot, which I would totally put in my mouth. But tell me why I need to smear these guys all over my face, too.
The slime has so many advantageous properties. It's a powerful moisturizer, hydrating agent, has antimicrobial capabilities. It's a powerful wound healing agent. It has so many great properties for your skin, which is why snail mucus is a multi-billion-dollar market across the globe.
Billion? I had no idea. So I imagine that you have to harvest this mucus somehow, right, to do your research. How do you harvest snail mucus?
We actually formed a partnership with an escargot farm out in Long Island. And we called them up and asked, hey, you have many snails. Would you mind if we just played with them for a little bit and collected their slime?
Yeah, so how do you collect?
The way that we harvest the 3 different snail mucus is for the protective one across the back, we just simply scoop it off with a spatula and throw it in the tube. For the 2 on the foot, for the lubricant, we just let them crawl all over a large surface to just deposit that snail trail everywhere they can. Whereas with the adhesive mucus from the same part of the snail, we actually stick them to our dishes upside down to entice them to adhere to that surface and deposit their glue.
Oh my god, that's so cool. So, I understand that you subjected this mucus to all sorts of scientific analyses. I saw that you even made a huge map of snail mucus proteins. Can you just briefly explain what you found in this so-called mucus map?
So what we found is what proteins make up this gel, this biological material, what sugars are attached to these proteins, and what kinds of salts connect the biomolecular network together. Once we know what they're made of, we can understand how to better use the mucus and how to create new materials inspired by them. That's why it's so important that we study it, because mucus, I firmly believe, is a beautiful material, is a choreographed chaos of so many complex components, so many different molecules coming together to do wondrous things.
You make mucus sound like poetry. That is slime scientist Antonio Cerullo at the State University of New York. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely being here.
This is NPR News.
Several senior government leaders are in their 70s or 80s.
The wisdom, experience, perspective that older generations can bring to our governance is both remarkable, important, and necessary.
How old is too old to run for office? That's tomorrow on Morning Edition from NPR News. Join Marianne Zalesnik tomorrow morning from 5 until 9 for Morning Edition on 91.7 WVXU.
Support comes from Rhinegeist Brewery, located on Elm Street in historic OTR, reminding you that Wednesdays are Beer for Humans Pint Nights. Each month, Rhinegeist celebrates 4 local nonprofits brewing positive change. You can grab a pint every Wednesday from 5 to 8 p.m. and support your nonprofit of choice.
Northbound 75 after Mitchell, there's a broken down vehicle on the left shoulder. In Claremont County, a report of a wreck eastbound Highway 28 at Branch Hill Guinea Pike, and a report of a wreck southbound 222 after Elk Lick Road.
It's All Things Considered. From NPR News, I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Elsa Chang. Coming up, a new podcast asks a simple question. Tell me about your mama's kitchen.
Answering that question is everyone from actors to soccer stars to Michelle Obama.
Much of what she needed came from that little simple kitchen with the yellow checkered tablecloth. Now news.
Live from NPR News in Culver City, California, I'm Dwayne Brown. A 2-week manhunt in rural Pennsylvania has ended with the arrest of convicted murderer Danilo Cavalcante. He had...
We've got $3 million for a water plant solid contact basin overhaul, a plant filter rebuild, and fluid valve replacement of $1 million. The water model, Rich mentioned that one also, $600,000. Plant improvements for a roof replacement, well rehab, $580,000, and then water main replacement, $500,000. Again, we won't be going out until probably Thanksgiving and into December, so if we identify more items, we can also have those in the actual ordinance. With this, there's 3 separate ordinances to give you a heads up. You have one for the band that we're renewing. You have one for the water system, and then the Ohio Revised Code mandates that we combine all those back into one ordinance. So you will see 3 separate ordinances with this. Finally, like I said, we've got a very favorable rate on this. We're projecting a coupon rate of 4.6%. We expect these bonds to sell at a premium, which means they'll sell for more than the actual principal value, so that'll usually cover the underwriter, attorney fees, and all that. And it gives you a yield of about 4%. Star Ohio, which we have quite a bit of our money in, it's a state money market program. We're getting 5.5%, so basically this is interest-free money. You don't get to keep the spread between the 5.5% and the 4.6%, unfortunately. This is a tax-exempt issue. That does have to be refunded to the IRS. This is a program through the state of Ohio. It's the Ohio Market Access Program. Again, we'll reevaluate where rates go, where these projects go in 2024, and maybe we go to permanent financing, or we can again renew this in December of 24. Are there any questions on this one?
No. Thank you, Dave. For record, Councilmember Lauer, 2 minutes, 7:01. Heard that entire presentation.
Coming next on the caucus agenda for agenda items 3 and 4 will be Liz Hayden, our planning director.
Good evening, City Council and residents of Hamilton. The first item that the Planning Department has on your agenda is a proposal for Crawford Avenue vacation. If you can look at this visual, you'll see that it is not the actual, truly the street being proposed to be vacated. It is like about a 15-foot portion of the right-of-way directly adjacent to the properties to the south of the street, and there's been a lot of work and discussion going on in this area, and this portion was identified as not being needed for the street and could be utilized privately by the adjacent property owners for their needs. Do you have any questions about this?
Questions? Thank you.
The second item is also a vacation. It's an alley vacation on Con Avenue Alley. This request came from a concerned resident who lives adjacent to the property, and they're having a number of issues back in this alley area, and it's not, if you were in the backyard, it would not look like an alley to you or I. It's grass, it's a grassy path that looks like it's an extension of people's property, and she requested that it be vacated for safety purposes, and this proposal is coming to you as the first step of that process. Any questions about this one?
Questions?
And lastly, on the caucus agenda, for agenda item number 5 of a verbal presentation by public safety. Mr. Scott is representing.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. This is a request for council to waive the advertisement for bids for the flock safety ALRP cameras. It's a proprietary software that's they're the sole supplier. It's 24 cameras throughout the city, a 2-year contract. It's $154,250. It's 100% funded by state grant.
These are very useful.
They're amazing.
Thank you for getting these.
Mr. Mayor,
Questions,
can
please?
I ask one?
Sure.
So, where, I don't want to know specific, but how are the locations chosen? Where
So we try to get every entrance and exit to the city. We'll have cameras on the bridge catching east and westbound traffic. They're throughout the city and then in high crime areas.
And they record every vehicle. Is that what happens? Okay.
And then we're surrounded by other agencies that have those cameras. So it's a complete package that's pretty much throughout Butler County. And we've just been using the technology that's supplied from the other cities around us right now without the cameras, and I can't tell you how many crimes we've solved. It's great technology.
Okay. I had made an assumption that we already had these cameras, so that was a wrong assumption. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burnett,
Question, Scott. Would the cameras be recording live so there's someone that would see it as it happens, or is it?
So we could to give you an example, we could put the license number of a stolen car in the system, and that car passes through one of these cameras. It can pop up on the cell phone of the police officer, real live time, the direction they're going, the location. They're amazing.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Scott, are these cameras permanently affixed to something,
They are.
or can you move them around?
So yeah, and Councilman Bond may be thinking about, we had LPR card readers on some of our cruisers. That's actually how one of the keys that we solved the Wolverine homicide with, that one of our cruisers happened to drive by Pater Avenue and pick up the license tag of the suspect's vehicle that we went back and found the day before it was going to be eliminated because of the retention policy. So we had those on our cruisers. These are fixed. They also have a product that you can put in addition to on your cruisers, but we're just going with the 24 fixed cameras.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentations.
I'll accept the motion that the committee of the whole be closed.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Fear, seconded by Vice Mayor Ryan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried at 7:10. I'll accept the motion that the regular meeting be reconvened. So moved. Second. Motion by Councilmember Dab, seconded by Councilmember Pullman. Roll call vote on that motion, please.
Pullman.
Yes.
Fear.
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Nab.
Yes.
Lauer. Yes. Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted. 7-0.
Now I'll accept the motion regarding those items.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Pullman.
reception of the item so noted. Council receive the reports of the consent agenda and concur in their recommendations.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Pullman, second by Councilmember Fear. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. 7:11. We now go into the public hearing part of the agenda. Now, so the motion, regular meeting be recessed, and the public hearing take place. So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Ryan, second by Councilmember Bond. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. We go into the public hearing at 7:12. Please read the public hearing to the record.
A public hearing regarding a preliminary and final development plan for 64 North Brookwood Avenue preliminary and final PD plan application and specific use request to allow self-storage facility use on property zone BPD business plan development with 3 variances for WH LLC applicant.
Okay. Interesting. If we just run into the record, the public hearing item involving 64 North Brookwood Avenue. And so anybody in the audience wishes to be heard about that development at 64 North Brookwood Avenue. I've got Mark Masterson first, then we'll go to the second person. Give us your name, your address, please.
Mayor, Council, Mark Masterson. I live at 16300 Country Road, 455, Unit 510, Montverde, Florida. I represent 4WH. We urge you guys to approve the preliminary and final plan development to allow for self-storage use of this facility. And I know there might be some details that are being worked out. And the last time I was up here on the meeting, August 23rd, I believe there were some questions that were asked to me relating to costs associated with some of the paving that was, in the out parcels. I was able to get some of those answers. I don't know if you want me to go over those now. I can certainly do so. The question that was posed to me was, what are the costs associated with just patching and sealing those 2 out parcels? And there's an estimate out there around it would be around $112,000. The cost to repave the 2 out parcels with an inch and a half asphalt layer would be around $254,000. The cost to completely turn those 2 acre parcels into green space would be around $540,000. So those are answers to some of the questions that were posed in the August 23rd meeting. I was also able to get some pictures of some facilities that we've operated and provided those to Liz. I think she may or may not have shared those with you. But also, if there's anybody has any other questions regarding this proposal, I'll be able to field that for you.
Hang around because there might be some more discussion about this. We may have to close this. Okay. Second, I see Dale McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Council, staff. We appreciate all that you do for us. As you know, most of you know
your address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We know you, but
yeah, 43 Laurel Lane, Hamilton. As most of you know, I served on the Planning Commission for a bit, and we went through this very seriously when it was presented to us. We have approved another version, and properties are sold, etc. Y'all know that story. But I saw the last planning meeting on Facebook, and I watched this particular portion a couple of times and decided, well, I apologize first that Planning Commission may have not sent you, maybe some mixed signals from repaving for versus patch and seal, okay? I have a proposal because we're very frustrated over the last 5 years or so with the conditions that have continued to decline in the parking lot out there, that because the businesses out there, parking lots are still being used, even though there's only one real business in the parking area. But people drive across it to get where they want to go in the parking lot, etc. So, if I may, I have a little schematic. Yes, a motion to take it or
receive. Second.
Councilmember Fear to receive these documents from McAllister, second by Councilmember Vaughn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Both same sign.
Sorry.
Send that to me. Pass it around right now for the record.
I've spent a little time. I apologize for my. I didn't do too well in art when I was a kid. But if you would take a look at it, we are not. I think I'm speaking for myself. I can't necessarily speak for all of the Planning Commission. We are cognizant of the cost related to that. We did talk about a lot of things, but it was paving and resealing. Mostly, we want the parking lot fixed and taken care of. And so, no, that's not necessarily our job, but it's something before we approve a plan and send it to you guys, we should be good stewards of the Planning Commission's, if you want to call powers or whatever, recommendations to you guys to look at. So if you'll notice here on this schematic, there is a newly approved parking area at the end of that building that is currently the rest has been torn down. So at that terminus of the building, there is a parking lot that is going in there. We approve that. Okay? And then regarding the repaving, so there's going to be pavers out there is number one. So going out there and have met with one of you out there, just to take a look. We'll go with parking lot number 2, which is closest to Wendy's. That front area, you can see the orange block there. That's a proposal from me to you guys, speaking from my vantage point on Planning Commission. Have that repaved. That's where all the majority of the holes are. Okay, and they're deep and can cause some damage. And then over on the other side of O'Reilly's, mark number 3, there is paving done on the front section there where the cars are parked, but it didn't get all of it done. So this is wide open. I don't know how wide it is, but what I walked off the other day is about 60 to 65 feet, and the whole width of the parking lot ought to be paved as well. Patching that is just putting a band-aid on a big wound. So those are my thoughts. The rest in pink, patch and reseal. So a little bit what we want, a little bit what Mr. Rasmussen wants as far as cost savings for his company. But these are the back portions of the parking areas. If they're sold, they might be redeveloped all back there. But if they're not, you know, we will have to force the buyers to do the same thing. He can pass the cost on to the buyers if he wishes, but we would like to see these fixed. And I know it's been a frustration for Plan Commission. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Mayor, please. You had this discussion with Mr.
No, I did not know he was here until I got here. Yeah, I will give him a copy of this and we'll talk about it